A series of explosions in the Russian city of Penza has disrupted two major gas pipelines that supplied both civilian and military facilities, according to reports by hromadske citing Ukrainian intelligence sources. The incidents occurred on September 8 in Penza's Zheleznodorozhny district. Sources told hromadske that at least 4 explosions were recorded, leading to the shutdown of 2 trunk pipelines with a throughput capacity of up to 2 million barrels per day. Hromadske reported that 2 additional regional pipelines at the same site were also damaged. According to Ukrainian intelligence sources cited by hromadske, the pipelines were linked to Russian military infrastructure engaged in the war against Ukraine. Local media in Penza, however, described the situation as part of planned exercises at oil and gas facilities involving emergency and special services. Outlets urged residents to remain calm and not respond to reports of explosions circulating on social media. The official narrative, reported by Russian outlets, stated that the drills were conducted at facilities of Transneft Druzhba and were designed to eliminate the consequences of accidents of a technogenic nature. Penza lies about 625 kilometers southeast of Moscow in Russia's Volga region, a major industrial hub connected to key energy transit routes. Earlier, on September 7, Ukrainian forces carried out strikes on Russia's Druzhba oil pipeline and the Ilsky oil refinery, targeting key fuel supply routes in Bryansk and Krasnodar regions, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
The Russian occupation army has recorded another case of so-called friendly fire. The Russian armed forces hit their own positions with a missile while trying to attack Sumy. The Russian military captured the aftermath of this attack on video. Look, it flew over our heads. It was flying towards Sumy, and it hit us. In short, our missile went off. The Russian military man said. He specified that the strike had scared them a lot. It is unknown whether the Russian armed forces suffered any losses during this attack. It should be noted that Russian missiles and aerial bombs regularly fall on cities and villages of the Russian Federation during strikes on Ukraine. Russian authorities are silent about the unscheduled descents that occur. Experts attribute these incidents to the low quality of Russian weapons. There was a lot of different information in open sources. For example, radio intercepts revealed the Russians complained about the shells, their non-detonation, large dispersion, and even shell bursts in gun barrels. Russians have a lot of them. The Russians have a shortage of artillery ammunition in certain areas, and the Ukrainian military can feel it when they receive new supplies of ammunition. The weight of international sanctions and the demands of war have exposed and intensified existing shortcomings in Russia's military-industrial base. Russia is currently struggling to build genuinely new and technologically advanced systems. Instead, it is relying on Soviet-era legacy systems and research. It is also heavily dependent on third-party suppliers to replace essential Western-made components with important substitutions and domestic production failing to meet requirements. Despite Russia's record levels of military spending, research shows that the current state of its military industry is one of regression, contrary to what the Kremlin would have the world believe. Production will likely have to be simplified and slowed over the coming years, while Russia will be forced to accept reduced quality of outputs and will suffer from innovation stagnation in its technological research and development. Earlier, media reported that since the beginning of the year, the Russian army has dropped more than 100 cabs on its own territory. The systematic falls of Russian aerospace forces' aerial bombs demonstrate the technological backwardness of the Russian army and create a constant threat to residents of Russia's border regions and the population of occupied Ukrainian lands. The research group Russian Elite from France presented a report on the growing discontent within the Russian elite. The aging dictator Putin, who will turn 73 in a month, continues to drag the country into archaic conservatism and a policy of prohibitions. Even the political strategists closest to the Kremlin admit that they can no longer tolerate this style. The focus was on a publication by Maria Sergeyeva, a political strategist and advisor to Oleg Deripaska, who is linked to the team of influential Kremlin official Sergei Kirienko. She called the patriotic community of guardians cockroaches, emphasizing that these new allies of Putin turned out to be much more unpleasant than the liberals. Sergeyeva writes, "The reptilians were suddenly replaced by insectoids, real cockroaches who, under loud phrases about how our boys are fighting in the SVO or about the need to protect traditional values, realize their ambitions and complexes." According to Sergeyeva, this is about an obsessive attempt by new patriots to penetrate the private lives of Russians. They have the only correct opinion about what we should eat, what we should drink, who we should live with, and how we should dress. There is no real concern for spirituality and morality there. The main conclusion: this circle has exceptional narcissism and a desire to feel power over others. I don't have the strength to look at this shame anymore, Sergeyeva concluded. As the research group Russian Elite notes, the circles loyal to the Kremlin are increasingly tired of the archaic narratives of power and repressive policies. The elites are ashamed of the primitive slogans, but at the same time it is clear it is impossible to change the situation because the source of these narratives remains Putin himself. The aging dictator wants to make life in Russia the same as it was in his youth, under the USSR, closed, suppressed, obedient, and with a large number of prohibitions on everything from personal to public life. Recall, Russia is entering a phase of instability. Official statistics from the Russian Interior Ministry confirm the worst fears. Putin's army, which has partially returned home, has brought the war with it. Violence, terrorist attacks, and serious crimes are breaking historical records, turning the country into a zone of constant threat. The military hysteria of Russian propagandists, the instilled atmosphere of hatred and snitching are also poisoning the minds of Russians. Putin's military adventure is beginning to pay off, not at the front, but on the streets of Russian cities. This is what the Moscow Times writes. According to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, 170.8 thousand serious and especially serious crimes were registered in the country in the first quarter of 2025 alone. This is the maximum for the entire period since the start of the full-scale war with Ukraine. The growth, compared to last year, was more than 13%. Large cities and depressed regions are seeing sharp spikes in violence, and society is increasingly becoming a victim of its own war heroes.